Rocksteady games are all about a character-driven game, you know, it's all about that kind of heart and soul of the characters that we want to bring to life.
There's nothing more high stakes than the boss battles we have in this game.
More things you can do, and more skill required to master them than you even had with Batman.
What the hell are you talking about?
Well, well, well. It turns out a vast majority of you were right. SS Killed the Justice League isn't good. It's actually really great. No, I can't. That's not true. I can't go on with that bit. Guys, it's pretty not good. However, with that said, I did manage to enjoy some of this experience, and I don't think the game is the worst game I've ever played, but it's not good either. I aim to be as fair as possible in my reviews on this channel, but I'm not going to go easy on it in this review, simply because I don't think it deserves it. A game that took over 10 years to make and just over 10 hours to complete a lackluster story. Previous developer updates, statements, and interviews will be drawn from in this analysis because I find a lot of how they handled their marketing and showcases up until launch distasteful to the overall experience that this game offers. I'm sure nobody actually cares at this point in time, but there is going to be tons of spoilers for this game, but also a few spoilers for Batman Arkham City and Arkham Knight. And to start it off, the real elephant in the room is their shocking attempts to skate around issues and where their game landed in the industry. There were a plethora of leaks prior to the game's launch, as I'm sure you all know, finding out character deaths, critical story moments, and their battle pass inclusions. One such leak was their live service elements, which people were really mad about. When asked about their upcoming game being a live service title, the question was kind of met with a beat around the bush statement, quoting, "For us, it wasn't so much about making a game in any particular genre. Rather, the focus is on creating a sense of flow and trinity between all our gameplay systems." End quote. But what does that mean? Doesn't that scale across every genre in gaming? You want all of your gameplay systems to come together in a cohesive package so the game feels good. It's an odd way to answer a question by basically saying the live service model wasn't intentional. It was just the best way to make a co-op shooter with repetitive elements, a store, in-game currency, and a coming battle pass. This really stood out to me because it showed me and the rest of the community that the team at Rocksteady were not capable of or fully committed to being transparent to their consumers about a game that was already getting ripped to shreds because of the premise. Not addressing aspects of a game that the community are aware of is not a good practice to participate in, especially if you want your game to come into a positive light. So my bold stance in this video is that I don't think live service games are inherently all that bad, but it's usually how the game systems are built around their live service implementations that are the root cause of bad live service games. Yeah, I'm from a time period where I miss getting full games at launch, and then if the game was good enough, it would get DLCs later on and you could choose to buy them. But the rate at which new content is uploaded to games these days is insane. It's unprecedented how much post-launch content games get now. I mean, they can virtually go on forever. Games like Warzone, Warframe, and Apex Legends all evolve around a games as a service model with free content updates and a totally optional cosmetic store for players who want to support the game by spending real-world money. But in these games are also the option to grind for in-game currency and eventually get something from the store. Though it obviously is heavily incentivized to go through the store to skip the whole step of having to grind for days or weeks just to get one skin. But with that said, all of these games are free to play. So SS differs, and yes, I'm calling it SS because, you know, YouTube doesn't like one of the words. SS differs because it's like a hybrid of Destiny 2 and those aforementioned games. Destiny 2 is now free to play, but each expansion is a whopping $40 or more, and if you got the game at launch, well, you spent an additional $70 to $100 on it, and you didn't get that money back when the game went free to play. Whereas SS has an industry standard price that is way too high if you ask me, but all of its post-launch support is said to be free right now. And if you ask me, if you're going to charge people for an entry fee, it needs to respect the player's time just as much, if not more, than your competitors that don't have an entry fee. Respecting the player's time looks a lot like this: having a wide variety of content, meaningful upgrades, new missions, large-scale events, awesome-looking unlocks, and a gameplay loop that is addicting. And, well, I mean, SS really only has one of these down. The combat in this game is one of the areas where Rocksteady clearly spent most of their time and resources because it's frenetic, flashy, slick, and satisfying, quite honestly. The Traversal I'll talk about in a minute, but it plays a direct role in how enjoyable it is. Swinging around the battlefield as Harley, shooting guys in the head, followed up by slamming your baseball bat into their body, lobbing a grenade before jumping off a rooftop to swing around and do it all over again never got old to me. Boomerang's Speed Force Gauntlet allows him to move at supersonic speeds and warp between foes, blasting them with a shotgun followed up by throwing a boomerang to his next target. The shooting, while not amazing, especially with other live service offerings on the table, it is serviceable. The funny thing is, prior to release, I thought the combat looked way too flashy and hollow, and I even said it kind of looked like a mobile game, but I grew to really like it over my 12 hours I put into it. And while I'm praising it right now, I will say it doesn't have a super amount of depth, at least not in the amount of time that I sunk into it. It was said prior to launch in their Insider Part 1 video that each character in their squad would play differently and be unique in their own way. But upon closer inspection, I guess you actually don't even need to look that hard. It's really not true, and the ways in which the characters differ is marginal at best. Instead of having unique scenarios where each character can be useful, Harley, King Shark, Boomerang, and Deadshot are all essentially the same build with different melee animations and varying guns, and they differ somewhat in their health. It's more about which character's traversal you like best than what they actually offer in a combat standpoint. They all take advantage of grenades, charge up abilities, melee, and elemental damage. King Shark you'd think would be able to pick up heavy objects like tanks and throw them at aliens. Harley could go invisible and sneak attack enemies for a massive damage buff. Since Boomerang's thing is, boomerangs, why can't he place explosive traps with them to get an advantage on enemy spawns? Deadshot's character is all about sniping. Why doesn't he have abilities related to that? I'm not even the biggest DC fan, and it feels like I can come up with better ways to make the cast more diverse. I don't know if they molded these characters the way they did for solo players, or if they didn't want anyone to feel left out if they were playing as a different character, I guess. As it stands right now, if you aren't playing as one, the other will work just fine. One of the aspects of combat that I appreciate the most is the significance of constant movement. I'd use Doom Eternal as a comparison, but I don't think it would seem fair comparing this game to an amazing game like Doom Eternal. Standing still will get you killed, and taking down enemies in a certain way will help you gain health, shields, and grenades. Shooting enemies in the legs opens them up for a melee attack that replenishes your shields. Sliding into enemies and knocking them over gives you grenades, and foes with shields need to be struck with melee to break them. It's just kind of a shame that almost every encounter plays out the exact same way. Go here, shoot a bunch of aliens until they're dead, move on to do the same thing, just with different parameters side missions offer. Some of these consist of having to kill enemies with grenades only. Another one I hate is that you need a damage boost to deal damage at all, so you have to find these squid-like things in the environment, kill them, and grab their power drops to be able to keep combat going. I respect their intent to add challenge and variety to the combat, but when these artificial barriers work against the fluidity and fast-paced nature of the combat, it really drags down what enjoyment there is to be found here. I previously mentioned Traversal. It's important to talk about it because it's such an integral part of the game. It's how you engage in combat, it's how you explore the world, it's how you do Riddler challenges, and lastly, it's what quite literally defines the cast. The combat and Traversal are hands down the best part of the game because what I'm going to talk about next isn't that great. But with that said, Harley has Batman's gravel, King Shark doesn't need anything because he's a literal god, Deadshot has a jetpack, and Boomerang has the best version of Traversal using the Flash's speed force that he ties to his throwable weapons. It ain't got crap on Spider-Man's Traversal, but it reminded me of Sunset Overdrive with the flashy movements, great animations, and vibrant world. They all vary in speed. I'd say Harley's without a doubt the slowest and King Shark is the fastest. It's funny though because I played a lot more as Harley than I ever did King Shark. I think most people are going to find Boomerang's method is where it's at. He just offers more control and sporadic movement that adds a level of chaos to him. Now Metropolis as a setting is how you say as wide as an ocean and as deep as a puddle, to put it in layman's terms. Metropolis is a major fictional city in DC that has never been created as an explorable open world in a video game form. So it should have been awesome, right? However, it's just not taken advantage of in any meaningful ways. There are plenty of Easter eggs and nods to the DC universe, and a few of the buildings stand out with their architecture, but that map is just so big a lot of the time it just blends all together by just how mundane a vast majority of the city is. I get that one of their main objectives with this title was to avoid the dark gothic vibe of the Arkham Batman games to reflect its brighter cast, but this transition isn't fleshed out enough to make Metropolis memorable. That's even with venturing inside places like the Daily Planet and LexCorp's Tower. For a game that focuses on its traversal mechanics as an integral part of its identity, it's hard to understand why this dense urban city wasn't constructed to aid the player in this regard. Jump pads, slide boost tracks, combos that greatly enhance speed, and none of that is here. There really is no interactivity within the world itself, and because of that, it gives you very little incentive to explore or look down from your airborne movements. It's not really helped by the fact that the world is completely vacant of anything that isn't an alien trying to kill you every 30 seconds. Sorry, I guess that's not true. I guess you can find Riddler challenges and trophies, and he also has timed race trials you can do if that's your thing. Arkham Knight's world feels alive because even though you're in the sky 90% of the time, there is always something going on in the world below you. A police chase, criminals starting a riot in the street, anything. Spider-Man 2 has so much detail in the world and you almost never have to go down to street level to see it, but if you choose to, there's interactivity there. People will high-five you and react to your presence. I mean, even the highly controversial Gotham Knights had NPCs in its world. I get that SS is a live service game and the other two I mentioned aren't really, but there couldn't have been random encounters to save captive humans or just funny conversations over here from Brainiac's fodder. I mean, honestly, anything would have worked. There are no captivating side missions with returning villains or characters. It's a space created for the sole intention of shooting things and doing nothing else. And then we have the story. I don't even know how to address this. I'll admit, the first couple of hours had me laughing and generally having a great time. I couldn't possibly fathom how everyone was hating the game. It calmed my nerves about the game going forward and led me into a false sense of security before slapping me across the face Will Smith style with their shocking decisions and jarring lack of impact in regards to everything they undertook in the game. I had no qualms for the concept of killing the Justice League. In fact, I thought it was quite original compared to the other offerings in this universe, and I was excited to see how they were going to go about it. And man, did it ever disappoint. I'm not disappointed because I had to kill Batman, or I had to kill the Flash, or really any of them for that matter. Firstly, I'm disappointed by how the heroes are utilized, and secondly, how one-dimensionally NPC they feel. The game does a poor job of emphasizing any kind of importance to who these characters are, what they represent, or truly how dangerous they can be as villains. DC superheroes are some of the most well-known heroic fictional figures in history, yet the game doesn't even take a second to consider this, instead using them for cheap boss battles and jokes. Their insistence on having this game take place in the Arkham universe is so baffling because the game essentially undoes everything those games put into place, and it's just a complete 180 tonally. Batman, well, he lived in the end of Arkham Knight and he's back and he's better than ever, and then in the 5 years I guess he put together the Justice League and he's doing well. Poison Ivy, well, she's alive now, but she's a child and doesn't remember anything about Harley or anybody else, so the connection just isn't there. It's not representative of what came before, nor does it do it justice. They could have easily made a spin-off game and put it in an alternate universe. I'm not really sure why they decided to tie it to the Arkhamverse, aside from money, like guaranteed sales. That's the only thing I can think of, because the rest of it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't excuse the fact that all of these heroes are killed off so nonchalantly, like they don't even matter to the game. Like, look at how much emphasis was on the Joker's death alone in the Arkham series. Talia's death, while minor, had more impact than anything you're gonna find here. To contextualize this perfectly, as soon as you kill the Flash, Captain Boomerang tries to pee on him, while everyone salutes the size of his Johnson.
He saved our lives, yet we ended his. As honorable warriors, we will show proper respect to this fallen hero by...
Show a little class, man. Holy shit. Congratulations.
I'm done. I can't do it. What is this? Who wrote this? Who wanted this in the game? Who does this appeal to? The writing is so hit and miss. You have moments like this.
I've been trying on the name Toyman.
More like
Annoy, man. Am I right?
And then you have writing which made me laugh like this.
Fricasseed penguin. Let's get him to... Oh my god, he's getting up!
Hitting him again.
He's ran out the door! Somebody stop him!
Did that get him?
Most of the time, it captures the squad's witty banter with great success. I really liked their dynamic, and the game had quite a few well-implemented jokes that gave me chuckles, but it's sorely lacking anything heartfelt or profound. This is helped by the squad not taking anything seriously. Everything is just one big joke to them, and moments that should have emotional depth fell flatter than the earth. Get it? Flat Earth Society joke? Anyway, each of the 4 Justice League members you fight have connection to the SS because they are responsible for their incarceration or their past wrongdoings. Boomerang gets Flash, Deadshot gets Green Lantern, King Shark gets Superman for some reason or other, just because I think they needed to tie him to a boss, and rightfully Harley gets Batman, which should have been the best moment of the game. But man, that last Batman scene should have had so much more depth than just Batman getting shot in the head. I just don't get what they were thinking. You can do whatever you want when you make a game. You have total creative freedom. You can go balls to the wall, put any concept out there, but at some point in development, you also have to take into consideration how your consumers are going to resonate with the decisions you make in the game. It doesn't help that Batman is the sole reason Rocksteady are as well known as they are, and it's why DC remains as popular as it does. Batman is basically the Iron Man of DC, a face of hope, and they showed no respect. That's coming from someone that isn't even a huge DC fan, so I can only imagine how others feel. Amanda Waller runs Task Force X, which, she's the leader of you basically, and the whole story is her just giving the team objective after objective while threatening to kill them by detonating the bomb in their heads. She's supposed to be hyper-aggressive, domineering, and ruthless, so in that regard, they did nail her character. But I got so tired of, do this or you're as good as dead. Obviously that's paraphrasing, but she says something like that so many times.
The Argus personnel.
Who's Argus?
I can kill you at literally any moment.
Oh, those bombs ain't coming out. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't terminate this program and your lives.
I get it, and so does every other audience member out there. They're supposed to be bad guys, and just because we were playing as them doesn't mean they're any less evil. But that leads into another problem I have with the game from a narrative perspective. Personally, I like the angle of bad having to do good to stop good from doing bad. But you play as a whole cast of characters that don't resonate with the audience because they are bad people. They don't attempt to expand upon them to showcase as to why we should care about them. Deadshot has a daughter he loves, right? That's a huge part of who he is as a character, and this game could have provided an explanation into why he hated Green Lantern so much through writing. But you don't get that. We at least could have understood better why Deadshot feels so fiercely towards Green Lantern. I mean, there's an alien invasion going on in the world and he never asks about his daughter. He just casually brings her up like, oh yeah, I love my daughter. Like, oh, okay.
Don't you like kids?
I like my kid.
The story is one big flop. Even Brainiac showing up in the final hour couldn't save it. A boss battle that abominably retreads the Flash's boss fight. I can't even make this up. All the boss fights were easy. I went into all of them underleveled, killed them with relative ease. I mostly enjoyed the boss fights because I like the combat and they shook it up just a little bit, but they aren't super well done. But hey, at least the character models look good and it ran well on my Xbox Series S at 60 FPS. The textures were pretty abysmal though. With everything it does wrong, somehow they managed to put out a pretty clean game. I never had any bugs nor crashes from their servers, so take that for what you will. But they still had to shut down the servers day one of early access to fix a huge problem, and that is why always online games are terrible. I think always online games are probably the worst implementation in the gaming industry, and with major companies looking to the horizon to rent games out instead of letting their consumers own them outright, this is something that we need to keep our eyes on, but that's a topic for another time. It's ironic that a game with such a powerful and intriguing title puts forth anything but. It's puzzling as to why they made it canon in the Arkhamverse to begin with, but also how they finalized the story decisions that made it into the game that we got. Not only are you spitting in the face of the fans that adore these characters, you are lacking in the department of varied, engaging content to keep people coming back after the story and future planned updates. The unextraordinary mop-up of the Justice League members is over in a flash. And yes, that pun was intended. They just kind of came and went without any impactful build-up or substance. The only character that goes out with any respect is Wonder Woman at the hands of Superman.
Her heart has stopped beating.
You went out like you lived, doll. Looking sharp. And never listening to us.
And even that wasn't super great. In fact, she has the most screen time than any other Justice League member in the game. She's the only one to have been able to succeed in evading Brainiac's forces, making it odd that we didn't get a game where you play as her and have to save the rest of the league. Maybe even kill Superman because he's too powerful to bring back. It's irrelevant because that's not what we got, and thinking about what we could have gotten just makes the burn worse. Instead, the Justice League members just radio chatter about what you're doing instead of, going out of their way to fight you and put an end to you, because it would be relatively easy for them to kill just normal people. I don't know how many times I was killing League members or destroying their foothold, and Batman would just kind of talk to us and be like, hey, stop it. Hey, Harley, you suck.
Yes, Brainiac. I have armor converging on Waller's position to cut the head off the resistance.
It felt so disconnected and you never feel like you are in any danger. There are other issues I took away from it. For starters, the loot box end mission screens where an animation will play and light up the color of the rarity that you're gonna get. Don't know why they're in here. After main missions, the team will have to stand on a rooftop and listen to bland conversations. You're just stuck in this tiny area and you can't jump or do anything. I have no idea why you are bound to these rooftops after, but it gets really annoying. I never found the increases in gear all that exciting either. I was really just chasing not so great looking numbers. I was always looking forward to loot in Destiny because the guns and armor are so unusual and noteworthy in design. There are raids and special events to partake in there too, and rewards, but these core elements in Justice League are lacking. They plan to support the game for the coming months, so it'll be interesting to return to it and see how the game evolves, if it does at all. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. It's just a real shame right now to see what Rocksteady have been spending their time and resources on, but man, who knows. Plenty of game has come out lacking, and in 2 years time it reaches peak player base, so it's really just a waiting game. Time will really tell with this one, but as of right now, it's really not worth it unless you're the world's biggest DC fan, and even then it's iffy. Even my buddy, he loves everything DC, and even he refuses to get the game. He just watched all the cutscenes online and he said, yep, it's crap. So yeah, there you have it. This is my thoughts and feelings on Justice League, or SS Kill the Justice League. Prior to doing this video, I actually put out a poll on the channel, and if you're here from that poll, welcome back firstly. And it got a lot of votes and they were pretty equally divided, but it was more in the no, and then I just decided, I'm going to do it anyway because I want to talk about this game. It's either going to be really, really bad or it's going to be really underrated. So that's it. That wraps up this video. Thank you for watching. If you like the content, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because there's more content on the way that I'm really excited for. So good night and good lunch.